disastrous Biden border agenda next on One Nation. Hello, America. Welcome to One Nation. I'm your host, Dr. Jake Jacobs. Now, many of you who've been following One Nation know that I was just recently on the southern border in Arizona with a number of individuals doing a documentary for the JakeJacobsShow.com called American Crisis at the Border. The southern border is wide open. But I got to tell you something. You can relax because Homeland Security, Honduras Mayorkas, I just butchered his name. That's fine because I have no respect for that man. Mayorkas is just down on the border with a photo op, and listen to what he says about the southern border. Here goes.
Customs and Border Patrol officials say there could be as many as 10,000 border crossings each day, nearly doubling the daily average in March.
The border is not open. It has not been open, and it will not be open subsequent to May 11th.
I'm here to tell you right now, Mayorkas is lying to you. What an oxymoron. Homeland Security. The homeland is not secure. Mayorkas, the appointee of Joe Biden, is directly lying to the people of the United States of America. I know, I saw, I've witnessed firsthand for 2 years in a row now what's going on. For my live audience and for you podcasters, I'll explain some of this. Here's some pics that I took when I was down on the border. There's our cameraman from Fix TV for the JakeJacobsShow.com, where I'm with Arizona rancher Jim Chilton. He has 50,000 acres on the border, 5 miles on the Arizona-Mexican border, and he proudly looks and sees what he calls the Trump wall, the wall that the left-wing media and the Democratic Party say Trump didn't build, but he did, and he was efficacious, and he was supporting the Border Patrol with the wall, with technology, with moral support, financial support. But there are big gaps in the wall. We have other pics down there on the border, and we're driving along. There were gaps upon gaps, what the Arizona rancher Jim Chilton called the Biden holes, the Biden gaps, where literally the cartel would be up on the local mountains in the area with telescopes, binoculars, I should say, and with their guns, of course, where they would be preparing their strategy on how to smuggle literally millions and millions of legal aliens into the United States of America. This next pic, on the left, we see a bunch of cacti with the Trump wall, the beautiful Trump wall. And then in the right pic, the pic here is once again of another huge hole and gap. And in fact, cartel were up on top of the hill above there that were watching us. They were far enough away for us to not be in harm's way, at least initially. And we were filming in that area where the Arizona rancher Jim Chilton and others that I interviewed actually were talking about the nefarious, evil activities of the narco-terrorist, the cartel of Mexico. It's absolutely disgusting, people. I mean, I have pictures down there with me in Mexico holding carpet shoes and an Arizona ranch, Jim Chilton's ranch, which is in Aravaca, Arizona, about 8 miles away from the border, literally hundreds and hundreds of carpet shoes, cartel carpet shoes, where they want to put them over their shoes so their feet print can't be found by the Border Patrol. And we saw contraband upon contraband of fentanyl, camouflage bags, camouflage outfits. We actually saw 4 cartel in a flat area on the Arizona rancher Jim Chilton's ranch, in an area where we saw them. They spotted us, thought we were Border Patrol because the truck looked like a Border Patrol truck, and they beelined up the hill, one of them tumbling down the hill. It was fun to watch and see. But the point is that this cartel has exploded. These guys are making not millions, but billions of dollars because of Joe Biden's Adios America agenda. He told them to surge, and they did, wearing Biden t-shirts. And the sad part is the dictator Xi of communist China, they are laughing at his agenda. They have become the enemy within, where the precursors for the fentanyl actually comes from China, communist China. And as you know, they have a glorious, in their mind, have a glorious plan to become numero uno by 2049, the 100th anniversary of the dictator Mao Zedong's takeover of China. So it's important for us to recognize that the Democrats, the wokocrats, the Biden administration, the top 5 people within his immigration policy are actually working with the United Nations and the World Economic Forum for their globalism, their anti-American sovereigntyism. This is something that as you and I are working hard, getting out of bed, raising our family, paying our taxes, worshiping God, in the meantime, these nefarious, poisonous elements permeate throughout the United States of America, and much of it is surging. A tsunami surge is exploding into our border. But yet, you know, in Arizona, the officials down there, they're cheering because old Joe Biden, he's sending a bunch of, thousands of troops down to the border. But the fact of the matter is those troops aren't going to be there to stop the surge of literally over 6 million illegal aliens since January 20th, 2021. They're down there so they can become administrators to facilitate the surge, the invasion of the United States of America. Our military, our men and women who are sworn to uphold the Constitution, to defend the United States of America, are being used as tools to facilitate the destruction of the United States of America, and it's disgusting. This isn't just, Jake Jacobs talking about this. His name is Henry Cuellar. He's a representative from Texas. He's near the Rio Grande area. And his district has been inundated with crime, with cartel, criminal activity, and drugs. And they don't have the infrastructure to actually take care of the tens of thousands, of hundreds of thousands, of millions that are flooding into Texas. It's just as bad as, it's worse in Texas. Arizona, it's horrible. In Texas, it's deplorable. And this Democrat is saying, Mr. President, Joe Biden, what are you doing, man? What your policies are a disaster here in the southern border. I mean, obviously, the governor of Texas, Greg Abbott, strong man. It says here, Greg Abbott shreds Biden over border disaster. He says it's caused solely by policies put into place by Biden. I used to call Biden's policies bumbling. I got to tell you what, people, the more I recognize this isn't, yes, Joe Biden is bumbling, schmumbling, incoherent, incompetent, inarticulate commander-in-chief. He's not even a commander, and he's not even a chief. He's a slipper man. He shuffles around like a little slipper man. He can't pronounce people's names. He can't complete a full sentence. But the sad fact of the matter is that his worldview, his mindset has been taken over by the wokocrats, by the globalcrats, by the anti-American city, anti-constitutionalist in the Democratic Party. They want America to go to hell in a handbasket, and Joe Biden's Adios America agenda is right on track. If he continues at this pace, we could be approaching between 10 and 12 million illegal aliens in the United States of America, wearing on the infrastructure of the United States, on the welfare system, on the social security system, on the education system, because the demand will be that the hardworking citizens of the United States of America, they must pay for the millions of illegals that have swarmed into this country. People, at this rate, we're going to have the whole population of Michigan, which is over 10 million, and you might as well throw in a North Dakota, South Dakota, and Montana while you're at it. That's like 2 Los Angeleses that have come into the United States of America because Joe Biden told them to surge, to flood the border, come to America, and use American citizens' tax dollars so they can get away with what they're getting away with. Now, we actually have a cut of the news now with Title 42, coming close to its death here, as you're watching One Nation. right? We had the news realizing, and the mainstream media, the elitists in the media, the propagandists for the Democratic Party, they, for the most part, have been ignoring this profound, egregious problem on the southern border. But it is so bad. It's got the attention not only of Democrats in Texas, it's got the attention of mayors, Democratic mayors in Washington, D.C. and New York City, Eric Adams, and Chicago and Philadelphia, because they're saying, hey, I know we were sanctuary cities. I know we were virtue signaling what lovely humanitarian people we are. But the fact of the matter is we don't have the wherewithal. We don't have the infrastructure. We can't take these hundreds of thousands of millions that are coming into northern cities. And they're bringing their drugs with us and their crime with them too. By the way, it's a myth out there that somehow that the majority of these individuals are legitimate asylum seekers like during World War II, when there were Jewish refugees and other refugees fleeing National Socialism or fleeing Imperial Japan. 97% of the illegal aliens are not under duress in an asylum sense of the word. And in fact, 42% of them don't even come from Latin America. Literally, it's like the United Nations. It's like 150 nations are represented. They're coming from Asia. They're coming from the Middle East. The cartel even have a special Muslim area department that they utilize, bringing in literally thousands and thousands of Muslims. Chinese nationalists, and dictator Xi loves this, has exploded since Joe Biden came into office by 900%. I repeat, by 900%. They're becoming the enemy within. And the Biden administration and Mayorkas and Kamala Harris, they get on the camera, they look at that camera, and they lie to you and me. And the purpose of Freedom Project Media, the purpose of One Nation, is for you and I to expose the darkness of the Democratic Party, the lies and deception that they perpetuate day in and day out, and have been doing so since January 20th, 2021. Let's listen to the news. ABC News talk about the problem at hand.
President Biden has ordered 1,500 active duty troops to report to the southern border. This comes as the pandemic era law the government has used to automatically expel undocumented migrants is set to expire next week. There are already 2,500 National Guard members deployed there. The Pentagon says the additional troops could arrive as soon as next week and could be deployed for a 90-day period. To be clear, those troops will not have a law enforcement role, but provide administrative help, including with processing asylum claims, easing the burden for authorities already on the ground. Maria Villarreal recently went on an exclusive ride with Customs and Border Patrol as officials are worried about a surge of migrants in the coming days. What will happen if Title 42 is allowed to expire? Maria has this in-depth report from Texas.
Desperation and frustration booming along the country's southern border. Attempts to find a way into the United States growing more brazen.
Y eso es lo que se requiere ahorita. Ahorita lo que se requiere más que todo el apoyo de los Estados Unidos, como con la prensa, los derechos humanos, que brinquen hacia ese lado y vean la realidad de lo que vivimos.
With Title 42 on the verge of dissolution. The Biden administration under fire for persistently high rates of migrant arrivals.
In just the 2 years of Secretary Mayorkas' reign at DHS, more people have come into this country than all of the 8 years of Barack Obama's presidency and all 4 years of the Trump presidency combined.
Combined, but for the rest of the story, we'll be back in a minute. Hello, America. Welcome back to One Nation. I got to tell you what, I get so riled sometimes I forget that we have commercial breaks. But this is the thing that I think we need to recognize. I've been teaching American history in some form or fashion since 1977. And I have seen in the last 10 years, since I wrote my book, Mobocracy, The Cultural and Political War to Destroy Our Republic Under God, I have seen an explosion, an exponential explosion, of what's occurring in the United States of America. Problems with our debt, problems with crime in democratic cities, problems within the culture, this war on American decency, American Constitution, the American family, within crime within the American city. And now we see what's happening in our border, which puts fuel into the fire of what's happening in our great country. This floodgate is not in the hundreds of thousands. At this point, as you've heard me say, we're talking 6 million plus. At this rate, we're going to be at close to 12 million. This is historic proportions. We've been keeping track of these numbers since the Dwight Eisenhower administration. Back in 1954, Dwight Eisenhower had Operation Wetback. There was profound concern by American citizens, Hispanic American citizens, and others who were saying, we're getting robbed of our jobs in Texas and New Mexico and Arizona and California. And people like Cesar Chavez and others said, hey, enough of this illegal aliens coming into the country, taking jobs away from American citizens. I think it's ironic that Joe Biden's got a bust of Cesar Chavez in his office like he's some, great advocate of illegal aliens coming into the country. And Cesar Chavez, I spoke at University of Arizona in the Cesar Chavez room here a few years back. And these kids didn't even know the history of this guy. This guy was against illegal immigration. He said it was bad for America. It was bad for, these are Latino, these are Hispanic Americans. That's why they have to destroy. If you have a Hispanic American like my friend Jorge Rivas or his wife Betty Rivas, she's from Mexico, he's from El Salvador. He escaped the communism of El Salvador. He comes to America legally. He lives here legally. He hates the cartel and he hates what's happening at the border. He supports Donald Trump and the wokocrats, the leftists, they attack him, they threaten his life. And I interviewed him down in Tucson. And he was saying we need to abide by the Constitution. But the moment he says that, he is the Hispanic face of white supremacy, because these leftists, they have to Saul Alinsky you. They have to destroy you like they're trying to destroy Donald Trump, or they're trying to destroy Ronald DeSantis of Florida, or anybody else who dares to stand up and speak out like a Tucker Carlson or a Duke Pesta. We need to recognize they are hell-bent. This is a war for them. And they are determined to actually destroy the very essence of what being an American citizen is all about. That's why Victor Davis Hanson, the great historian, he's not only a historian from Stanford and Hillsdale College, but he's a farmer in California. And he wrote the book Mexifornia. And he warned years ago, like I did in Mobocracy, that if we continue at this rate, we're going to have serious, serious problems in the United States of America. They're here, it's here, and now's the time for us to stand up to this. I was supposed to interview my dear friend, Sheriff Mark Lamb of Pinal County down in Arizona. Mark is a great guy. He's now announced that he's going to run for the Senate in the state of Arizona. I've connected him with Senator Ron Johnson, so Ron can kind of give him some moral support and some ins and outs about what it means to run in the Senate. And also, Mark was going to give him information about what he is seeing happening in Arizona with the cartel activity going on. So I couldn't get Mark, but Mark says I got my lieutenant. His lieutenant's name was Chris Lepre. Ironically, we get to Casa Grande, Arizona, which is in Pinal County. Now, I need to explain a little bit of Arizona geography. You got in the southern part of the state, Tucson. And Tucson is in Pima County, and that rubs up right on the border where we were. And then you have in Phoenix, the predominantly Maricopa County. Well, there's a county sandwich right in between called Pinal County. It's called the corridor, the cartel corridor, the cartel coyote corridor, where I-8 and I-10 come. And once they get up to that point and they get on these interstates, then they flood throughout the United States, up into Fargo, North Dakota, Bismarck, North Dakota, Minneapolis, Green Bay, Wisconsin, Buffalo, New York, Portland, Oregon, Seattle, Washington, Los Angeles, happening all over the country. So this lieutenant, he at first, he Googled me, he looked me up, and he was kind of hesitant in talking to me, and he didn't seem too pleased as we're getting in his vehicle to go look around at things. And I'm sensing that there's something going on here. And I say, hey, dude, who do you think I am? He goes, you're that Jake Jacobs. You're a left-wing guy out of California. I said, no. I'm Jake Jacobs from Wisconsin. I work for Freedom Project Media. Dude, I'm as conservative and traditional, lover of the American Constitution, lover of our republic under God as you're ever going to get. We became very good friends, and he took us through that area where the cartel is coming through. We found cartel paraphernalia all over the place. And at one point, one of the cartel cars shot away because they saw us with their Sonora license plate. He was going to chase them, but he couldn't because we were with them. We got incredible film footage of what's going on. I want you to hear him talk about what's happening down in Pinal County near Casa Grande in Arizona.
What we were seeing is a lot of stash houses or safe houses were here in Casa Grande, Stanfield, Maricopa, and what all that is these transportation cells bring the narcotics or the people up from the border to the I-8 corridor here. They get offloaded or basically picked up by the supply compartmentalization of that organization and transported to these houses. From there, the dope's all marked and sent out.
Lieutenant Chris Lepre will be one of my shows, American Crisis at the Border, coming up here later on this summer at jakejacobshow.com. But in the meantime, Ann Coulter wrote a book in 2015 called Adios, America. The left's plan to turn our country into a third world hellhole. They laughed at her. They ridiculed her. They called her a right-wing fanatic. She was spot on. But another gentleman by the name of Todd Benson has written a book called Overrun, the greatest border crisis in American history. You've got to hear what he has to say about what's happening right now as you watch as you watch One Nation. Here goes.
To give you some context, a few years ago, the former Secretary of DHS, Jay Johnson, was quoted saying, if I woke up in the morning and apprehensions were more than 1,000 a day, I was going to have a bad day. We were in real trouble at 1,000 a day. We stand for years now at 7,000 and 8,000 a day. That's history in the making. 200,000 a month. In December, we had 250,000 in a single month. Think of 4 Super Bowl stadiums filled coming through that border every month. 4 Super Bowl stadiums. Border Patrol altogether in the last 24 months has laid hands on a stunning 4.6 million people, 4.6 million times since Inauguration Day. And this traces to Inauguration Day, as I'll explain, and as the book shows. As a defending force, the agency collapsed Border Patrol agency collapsed in retreat so that it could do the administrative processing necessary to move all those people into the country. That left long swaths of the southern border undefended, nobody there. I've been there, I saw it, I've driven it. No Border Patrol.
I've been there. I saw it. No Border Patrol. I went places the Border Patrol wouldn't even go. People, I'm telling you right now, we're in serious, dire straits. It's not 7,000, 8,000. It's up to 10,000 a day right now. Let's remember something. It was Joe Biden who declared surge to the border. Listen quickly to what he said when he ran for president.
I would, in fact, make sure that we immediately surge to the border. All those people are seeking asylum. They deserve to be heard. That's who we are. We're a nation that says if you want to flee and you're fleeing oppression, you should come.
You should come. The cartel literally called it La Invitation. I can't pronounce it properly in Spanish. They called it the invitation. Joe Biden, you invited us. You told us to surge, and we came wearing proudly T-shirts that said, Biden, let us in. And he's letting them in record historic numbers, and we need to do something about it. Otherwise, it's adios, America. From day one, Joe Biden, that was his plan. So my fellow Americans, we must work hard to make sure Joe Biden does not have another term. We must be bold. We must take action. We must participate and get involved before it's too late. So until we meet again, Godspeed, God bless, and happy trails to you in the battles ahead.